hydropower in the country and how to harness it better. Okay, Raghav, the way ahead, what to do with these bottlenecks, how to move ahead?
I would suggest that the governments at all levels, center, state and the local level should join hands and bat aggressively in favor of these hydropower projects. Wherever the state government, even in recent times or even 50 years back, has supported a hydro project, the hydro projects has seen the light of the day and there have been more or less timely completions. Even today you have Madhya Pradesh and the South Indian states that have had fairly good timely completions, and you had Punjab also doing the same. The other thing is that we need to have stakeholder consultations at the time of planning of the project. Like Pandya Sahab said, you need to have a very extensive phase of planning. So in this phase of planning, you should have stakeholder consultations upstream and downstream. All the people who will be affected by a project need to be taken into confidence. They need to be told that you will gain A, B and C benefits, and this particular thing has to be ensured. The government has to ensure that benefits are delivered to the local people who lost the land, that they have a source and a sense of livelihood that they gain out of the whole thing, which has happened very successfully in the case of Punjab and South Indian states. Thirdly, I'd say that the government has to also ensure that, like Mr. Varshney said, there has to be a hydropower project is not really a power project by itself. It has immense multiplier benefits for the local economy over there. You have flood control, you have various issues of pisciculture, etc., tourism, etc., everything that can come up. So you have a number of externalities which in a power project you cannot build, like Mr. Varshney said, 200 kilometers of roads. So you need to have someone like the Border Roads Organization, etc., subsidized so that you have infrastructure built over there, and once you set up a hydropower plant over there, you'll have all those multiplier effects accruing to the economy.
All right, a lot of things that you're pointing out, Mr. Sidhaiya. Would you like to add something to that? What should be the road ahead?
Yeah,
how to get around all of these bottlenecks?
I would like to add what I agree with entirely, and I just want to clarify one of his points, the stakeholder consultation. That will happen once the project is developed to a stage where you have to, where it is coming up, how much land it is required. And we have enough of machinery, regulatory checks on it. You have to conduct a compulsory public hearing before going for an environmental clearance. And if it is forest, normally all hydro projects are in remote areas and involve forest land. Then you have to settle the Forest Right Act consent, also you have to take all the Gram Sabhas. And then again the new Land Act also makes it mandatory, 80% or 70% consent of landowners. So for stakeholders thing, the mechanism is far more than what it is required for hydro project. Unfortunately, the new Land Act doesn't recognize that the hydro projects are location specific. If they have to come, they will come there only. They can't move here and there depending on the preferences of the landowners. And second, it is a national asset, whether it is developed by private or public. It is there for hundreds of years. And third is that you need support not only from the state government, local people, the neighboring states, as well as the state government and the central government and all the agencies. And there has to be a forum where all of them will meet and try to understand and give adequate time for the concerns of the developers, whether it is public sector or private sector, doesn't matter, or joint sector. And then see what are the hurdles that are stopping the development, whether these are feasible to be solved or not. Then you decide that. And not only that, in this, some of the projects are really ready for construction, but they have to compete with thermal projects for lending by the lenders. And the lenders prefer, obviously, he is in a business of lending. He prefer thermal project than hydro project, because hydro project has so many uncertainties. So all the agencies are having sympathy, but not sensitivity. So now it is what is required is action. For action, you require a mission. So there has to be a mission, and there has to be a platform that can be done by only central government. They have to play a catalytic role in it. Actually.
Rahul, Mr. Sidhaiya pointed out something very interesting, that when we talk about the new Land Act, and if we try to understand the significance, the impact of the Land Act on the subject that we are talking about, it becomes significant to remember that unlike real estate projects or unlike other government projects, a hydropower project is location specific. It will come up the practicability or the usability of a certain area has been analyzed, and it is only after that that area has been identified, and the project will be able to come up according to its full potential if it comes up only at that location. But what do you do about the dissent, the potential dissent that might be there in that area? If people say, why should we leave our place? If you are asking us to rehabilitate, if you are rehabilitating us, if you are asking us to move to another location, for example, the entire Narmada Valley controversy, what do you do? How to communicate to those people who don't want to leave that place?
I mean, it's a very pertinent issue, and especially for hydro projects. The only way to handle it is it's a detailed CSR program which has to be brought in place, and most of the companies worldwide, they do it with the stakeholders consultations. There are IFC norms which are very elaborate. In India, we normally get away with just one consultation, public consultation, and that's about it. But right from the beginning of the project, you inform the locals when you start your survey and investigation works, which is very preliminary works. You inform, you take do public consultation, you take an opinion, you form an opinion, you develop a CSR program so that the people also understand, and a proper R&R policy if there are people affected in the region, and try to bring all the people into it, which is not only the locals, but also affected people, which could be the other departments of the government or the state government itself, and bring them together and then work out.
Three things you are pointing out: a proper R&R plan, keeping the local people involved in the loop ever since the beginning, and the third point being, apart from rehabilitation and
CSR program.
The CSR program. Mr. Pandya, your take, will these three steps be enough to address local concerns of a particular project?
I mean, many of these steps will actually be quite helpful in understanding the local concerns and providing for them. One more issue that I feel is that unlike any other projects, in case of a hydro project, what happens is that the moment a hydro project is announced, there is a very vigorous and a very active campaign at the policy level for somehow, I mean, stopping that project. There are certain groups and certain kind of activism is solely directed at negativism. And that particular negativism, which has come from some areas, but that has been translated to our country. And what happens is that at many a times the local population, who is not necessarily supposed to have that level of a technical know-how or that much level of an understanding of the whole economics and impacts, is kind of
all they know
diverted.
Is that we are being pushed out of our land.
We I mean, many times some sort of Cassandra like scienarios, the Pralay like scenarios are projected before the people, which have no really sound scientific basis. That pseudoscience is the one which is really creating a lot of problem from this public consultation point of view, because when somebody is given a kind of a mindset right in the beginning that you have to go and say only these things, then it becomes very difficult. When I am coming with an open mind, then it is very easy for me to understand.
Well,
I would just like to add one thing.
I'll come back to it. We have some more time. It's time for us to slip into a short break. When we come back, are we also trying to understand if there are any international parallels that we could look at and trying to understand how India could emulate that sort of a model. Slipping into yet another break. Stay tuned to Public Forum. Welcome back. You're watching Public Forum, and today we are talking about the potential of hydropower in the country and how to harness it better. Yeah, Mr. Sitaya, you wanted to add something.
See, regarding consent of the local people under the new Land Act for development of a hydro project by a private company, I want to clarify that hydro project is hydro project, whether it is developed by public sector or private sector. So the consent rule should be same, and moreover, they are being location specific. There should not be any limitation of quantification of the consent. Third, if at all the consent has to be made mandatory, you please make it mandatory from the people who are getting displaced from there. In most of the cases, no families being, no homestead being displaced. It is only part of their land being submerged. So you can always get an alternative land to the people who are losing land, not the project actually. You can't relocate, the project has to come there only.
Okay.
So the act has to look into that.
Yes,
It has
Ram.
to have an essentiality sort of certificate like the scheme was. I mean, it is essential, it has to be put in that particular place where it is bound to be. I mean, you cannot displace it or you cannot change the location.
Yeah.
So that's
All right. Raghav, international situation. I mean, there must be countries that have advanced or that have moved much ahead in terms of hydropower generation. They must have also faced these problems that we are facing at this point of time. How did they deal with it? Is there any example that India can learn from?
Yeah, if we go back to the historic examples, we see a country like Norway, overwhelming majority of the power is absolutely hydropower.
Okay.
Switzerland developed all its watch industries and all about 100 years back and more than that because it had cheap hydropower, absolutely free hydropower. Now the way that they did this was through extensive consultation. They've had very, very strict environmental and other forest related guidelines, and they've all stuck to it. The idea is you need to have a national hydro policy in place where in a given democratic system of ours, and we are very proud to have a democratic system like ours, we should have the state playing a key enabling role to take care of all those things that it alone can take care of, in terms of any rehabilitation or looking into the various legal matters that go into land acquisition. The problem in India is if you have a strip of land, you have so many claimants to it. You're not really sure whom to give what, so the private sector itself can't do it. So you need to have the state's role clearly defined so that it gives it to the private sector from where the private sector efficiency and all can plug into the thing. Other areas, other countries that are doing it very well are Brazil, Peru, Chile, etc. And these are other models that we can look at besides the Scandinavian model and the Chinese model. The Chinese model itself does not hold much promise for India because they say it's a very totalitarian state and they can do what they want. So maybe you have to look at democratic models the way they are being done.
I'm not too sure about the Scandinavian models either because of the sheer fact of our diversity. I mean, the noise in our democracy is much louder and coming from much more corners than we could expect in any Scandinavian nation. Probably the Latin American nations would be a closer parallel as compared to the European ones, but then as you said that even they are making progress. Brazil and Chile, did you say? Yep. They are moving ahead. Yes. Mr. Sitaya, your take on what can we draw from international patterns?
Hydro is one of the oldest forms of energy generation. It is tested and proved how it should be developed, whether it is Scandinavian country or Canada, North America, or whatever currently that is being done by China or Latin America. Wherever the nation had money, which can mobilize from public sector, private sector, it first went for this source because it gives the highest form of energy security.
Okay.
So that we have to learn the principles behind, and we have adequate regulatory mechanism to see which project should come, at what parameters, in what guidelines. So we have to enhance our commitment, and we don't require any models to be replicated. Whatever model we have, we should focus on it and give a sustained effort and understand the difficulties and solve it. You have to give a mechanism. As I earlier said, you have to have a mission mode. Then it will happen.
Okay. Who has to take the leading role in that?
I think only central government. This is in a concurrent list. Only central government can take.
Okay. And then it needs to create a beneficial environment for the private sector.
Let there be a hydro development authority, let's say.
Okay.
You name anything.
Okay.
But it has to be there because there are statutory agencies. You can't give it to either CE or CWC because they have a statutory role.
Okay.
Now you have to create a new authority which will, like in insurance, we have an authority. It has become a good platform to regulate all the activities.
Okay.
You create a authority and a platform, and you have a public a white paper on it, and invite all the stakeholder subjections and try to address them and do that. Because many things have to be coordinated among a Minister of Environment, Forest, other ministries in the Central Electricity Authority, Central Water Commission, Geological Survey of India. There are many agencies that are involved. Even it is 100 megawatt or 1000 megawatt or 3000 megawatt. The time to develop and the issues to be addressed are many. So the attention span of all the agencies very less for hydro.
Okay.
You have to enhance the attention span. That's
Okay.
all.
Okay. Rahul, what can we understand from international parallels?
I mean, first of all, we should harness the potential, the hydro potential at the earliest. No doubt about it. Most of the economies have grown, and especially Norway economy grew just because they could harness the hydro potential at the earliest. 98% of their generation is through hydro.
Okay.
And so is with other countries. So that's one important aspect. In terms of the framework, I think there are certain tweaks required. If and as Mr. Sithaiya said, if we leave it for the central government, probably it is in nobody's hand. If hydro is a state subject, then the state government should take the onus and the responsibility of developing that particular project in their region, which means they need to play more like a project management role in the overall scheme of things, and deal with the central government authorities like CEA, CWC or environment ministries in order to facilitate the private developer or any of the central players who would be developing that hydro project. So, whosoever is the developer per se. So, that kind of a model can only suffice in terms of, and then the state government would facilitate the developer in terms of land acquisition and issues related to poor infrastructure and those kinds of things. So, that is the kind of role which, and the proactive role, because ultimately who is the gainer? The gainer is the state government. The earlier the project is commissioned, the earlier he gets free power, and that is the incentive the state government gets. So, they need to, and also they have taken a lot of money in terms of upfront premiums and all.
Okay.
So, there should be that kind of an accountability from the state government and a responsibility so that they can facilitate all these things more in a project management role.
Okay.
And of course, the state governments also need to have more clarity in terms of the policy framework and the systems and processes to be put in place, clarity in terms of M&A policies if that is required.
Okay. Mr. Pandya, do you find it fair, do you find these comparisons fair in that India can learn from the Scandinavian examples or from the Latin American examples?
Yes, definitely, especially the Latin American examples are a good choice, because they have a similar socio-economic context that we are having. One of the very important issue is to have a societal dialogue in which we are able to come to a conclusion that what is good for us. At this point of time, that societal dialogue is missing.
Okay.
That is why this kind of an adversarial relationship always comes up. Whenever we as an engineers or as the developers, whenever you go to the particular location, this adversarial nature of dialogue really does not allow the things to really be speeded up. So, as a society totally, we have to really work towards removing this adversarial nature of our dialogue between development and anti-development.
How do we do that? What should be the roadmap?
We should be prepared to really always listen or understand the other side. At this point of time, many a times we feel that there are certain issues, there are certain problems which are basically handled on a technical footing, but then the debate is more in the public domain. Where completely uninformed kind of discussions really take place.
Okay.
I feel that there has to be some amount of understanding on that front.
Okay.
On the other side also, we also have to work on a regime where we take the local people on board and assuage their small problems. Most of the time what we have seen, I have seen in case of Uttarakhand and other places, is that the problems that germinated this particular issue were actually small.
Okay.
If those problems would have been taken on board by very good public relations and very efficient redressal grievance exercise, the things may not really develop that fast. So, a coordinated mechanism is definitely needed between the government and the developer for setting right the development pace.
Okay. And central as well as state governments. When you say
yes,
government,
of course,
you mean
government
the
means all the government.
Yeah, but who has a bigger role given the fact that it's a state
governments do
subject?
have a bigger role, because the land is a primary resource which is completely in the hands of the state. Only the water, only the power has the concurrent list, but the land and water remain fully in the domain of the state government.
Yeah.
So, that is where we do need more help from the state government as well.
Okay. Raghav, last question from you. What is the role that you envisage organizations like IPPI can play in creating more awareness about the fact that we need to prioritize our harnessing of hydropower?
IPPI has already been carrying out extensive stakeholder consultations at various states also, and not just the central level. We need to go further. We need to go and employ people from amongst the youth who are affected. We need to go into those local areas and get the local governments and local tribal chiefs and all on board. And this is something that we intend to do in the coming years to come with the support of the hydropower sector.
Okay. Well, wish you all the best. I mean, of course, if everybody is on board, only then can things really move ahead in this country. That's one of the essential caveats that you have to apply in a democracy like ours. I'm afraid that's all I have time for in this discussion. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chair.
That's all we have for you in this edition of Public Forum. Thank you so much for watching us, and do stay tuned to Lok Sabha Television for more. Namaskar.